My story really starts like before I was born. So my grandpa was growing up. He was a go-karter. Like when he was 17, he just did it as like a hobby. So when my mom and my uncle were growing up, um, he really wanted them to kart. My grandma really wasn't about it. She didn't like it. She didn't want him to do it. So kind of how it goes is my mom, when I was born, I'll just kind of say like my mom had like a something called like a C-section. So I know a little bit about it, but she had to go like fully under and to get me out. Basically, we almost both died. So I came into the world with like a bang. Um, yeah, so the anesthesia is just wearing off about like my second hour in life. And the first thing that my grandpa thinks to say to my mom is, "Are you gonna let him cart?" And she was just like, "Maybe we'll see." A few years later, I was like three and a half. We were at a motorhome show, and my grandpa found this thing. It was called quarter midgets. So it was a oval at the time, and yeah, it was just really a lot safer for my mom because I think the thing that from an outsider, it looks like well, when people crash in a go kart, they'll just fly out. Like, it doesn't look safe. But obviously, at the time, realizing it's probably more safe than it looks. But yeah, so got my mom's safety approval to do quarter midgets when I was 3.5. So I was 3.5 at the time. I had to wait a year. I had to wait until I was 4.5 to actually drive. So in that time, we went out to the track every weekend and watched and met people and kind of got involved with it. And then when I was 4.5, paid $20 for a try it, you like it test. And I definitely, like, for sure had something when it came to it. I had really good people around me. Like, I know my grandpa, he was very passionate about it as he wanted me to like do it. So he was always willing to take me out to the track every weekend so we could go and practice and turn laps. And for sure, like, it just took a lot of time to really develop it because at that point it was a lot different kind of style compared to like what I do now. That it was more about being like as smooth as possible and having the everything in the right frame of window.
Are you still like building off of some of those like core principles that he taught you?
I would definitely say probably not. I
Okay.
definitely feel I'm building off some other benchmarks and some other people around me.
So you're 4 years old, you're 15. What's the journey from there to like 10?
When I was about 5 to 6, I started at club level. I started just trying to hone my craft, build the skill set that I had. Then when I was I think I was 7 at the time, we had a club level. We won 3 club level championships in 3 different classes. Um, so that was kind of the first like taste of like a championship success. Um,
And this is at what
that
age?
7, I think.
7. In what cart?
It was in something called the quarter midget.
Oh, okay. So
So
this is the oval, the pavement oval. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So done that, and then the next year after, we started moving into regional stuff, and it was like okay, like nothing too crazy. Um, and then the year after, we started going for nationals. So we went for the championship of the USAC national championship. I was 8 years old starting the year, and I was 9 at the time. So it was kind of my first like full thing, and kind of we were supposed to do it the year prior, but I was told I had to go to summer school, so I couldn't travel and do all that stuff. We ended up pulling it off a year, and it was supposed to just be. I think my mom would tell us like because I did the summer school, then I could go on like a 6 week kind of thing, and I could travel and go and do the big races. And it was supposed to be. It's supposed to end after the 4 weeks. We ended up traveling till January the next year, so it ended up turning into a lot longer trip than we all thought. But it was because of the success for sure. We won the the big national race, like the biggest of the, probably still to this day for the series. Won that, and was pretty much in like like probably was like June, July. I was guaranteed the national championship as long as I played my cards right with how the point system was. So we finished out the year, and I was champion of junior Honda for the nationals, which was pretty cool. Got
Wow.
to go to like the big banquet, and it was really really cool for me.
Wow.
But then
At what age? Is this not
9.
9? Okay.
So at that time frame as well, that was when I kind of got my toes dipped into road course racing. When we were at a national race, somebody said is it really, you're just turning left, you're just going in a circle, it can't be that hard. And so then I said to my mom, I said, I want to turn left and right, I want to do road course, I want to try it. And she ended up finding someone that had a winter series in a car that's called the Bandolero, and it was a winter series out in Las Vegas. And that's how I got my start on road course. I didn't do karting, nothing like that. Like that's how I started. And yeah, I was did one race that season, and then the next 2 years we did the whole season. So then that's kind of the frame. So I would have been probably 10 at the time.
Uh-huh.
It's kind of where it leads off.
Wow. Okay. And then what was like? When did you get into simming? Then at that point.
So I was sim racing since I was got a simulator when I was 7. So I started on iRacing when I was 7. But I would say, like, again, the definition for me of like starting is the one thing, but then like where I am now, I'd say like where I actually like took it serious. You know, I didn't come at it with like some ego or anything like that. I actually started taking it serious, and I tried to get better, and I tried to improve. So I would say that came around COVID, when everything went away, and I really felt like it was time to turn up the sim stuff and to really start to develop the skills.
So you're like
Uh,
13 at
I
the
would have
time.
been 11, I think.
11.
11 or 12, man.
Okay.
Wasn't
Well,
yeah.
that would like be 4 years ago because I think COVID started what,
Oh,
like
yeah, so it would have been
2020 or
12? Yeah,
something.
12.
12. Okay. Okay.
11, yeah, something like that.
Crazy, dude. Okay, so you're doing iRacing. Started at 7. You've been doing it now for almost 10 years. So like 8. When you turned 16?
I turned 16 July.
In July. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then did you? I'm assuming that you must have started out doing ovals in iRacing as well as road,
Yeah.
and then you
It
eventually just focused on road.
it was for me at the time, at the start, it was all oval. I really didn't bother with road, and it was that, and then a little bit of like dirt oval. Like that was kind of where all of my friends used to do, so that's kind of what I did on iRacing for the first bit. And then, like I said, like COVID, I got thrown into a road course series in the Mazda, and that's kind of where I started. And then I started doing more and more road course, and then I just stopped doing any of the ovals and focused fully on road course.
Is the first like major competition that you through sim racing that you won basically that Skip Barber thing?
No.
No.
So, kind of what I started with sim racing with success wise was I did the championship that I started off in, which at the time was a pretty competitive championship. I don't follow it that much anymore, so I don't really know. But at the time, I remember it was pretty competitive. There was a 9,700 iRating driver in there, a couple like 6Ks, a couple 5Ks. Like, it was pretty decent competition for the Mazda. They had what I would say, like, at the time, like the best Mazda driver, his name's Robert Hartley. Probably ring a bell because he's iRating so high, and not really he's not really seen. But I remember in the Mazda he was really, really good at a point.
We're talking about the MX-5.
Yeah, MX-5.
Okay. Okay.
So I started, and I won that championship. They ended up branching it out into like that, a championship with GT4s and a championship with like IMSA, so like LMP2 at the time, GTE, and then GT3. So I ended up winning those championships twice each, like all 3 of them. So I won 6 of them in total. And then I kind of got my first big actual money race, the PAX 5K. So it was $2,000 to win in the Formula V at Laguna Seca. So the combo's a bit scuffed, but I remember I put good hours into it. I had really good pace, and I ended up winning. That was probably for me the biggest achievement at the time, and the first big step. That was July of 2021. And then a couple months later, I did the Porsche Sports Super Cup, the pro qualifying, and I made it to the contender series. So I had a pro license for a few months, and then I was 4 points off of making it into PESC. And I'm straight up, I barely tried. Like, I don't know how I made it as far as I did. So I was very close for the first time, and nobody thought I would make it to contenders. Nobody thought I would make it close. So I already blew away expectations. Um,
And who is
And then
nobody? We're just like friends and
just a
family, or
team, just guys in the team. They were just like, "Mate, just go out, have fun, build experience, and then you can come in next year, and then you can qualify."
were you
So,
ever so during this time, this kind of transitionary phase of going further into sim racing, were you on a real team at any point? And then how many teams were you on in sim racing at that point, or was it just freelance?
okay, so for real life teams, I really bounced around a lot. Like the thing that I feel like separates me a lot from most drivers, and I actually kind of will say is I did a lot. Like I did a lot of different cars and a lot of different things and a lot of different genres. So I built like a wide range of experience. So I
Mhm.
never really committed fully to a team since I was like 11, I think. Um,
Okay, wow.
so I was doing a lot of other stuff around, trying out a lot of things, and then with the sim racing, um, one point when I was doing the kind of first series I started out in, I was picked up by a team called Orion Race Team, and they're like an old iRacing Grand Prix Championship Series team. Um, so they're very, very old. But they picked me up to try and bring some kind of youth, and very quickly it helped improve me a little bit. And I was maybe on that team for 6 months, and then I was scouted for Apex. Um, which actually interesting story is the series that I used to run in was broadcasted by Apex Racing TV, so it's under the same like umbrella. And the guy who owns Apex Racing Team, Alex Simpson, he kind of noticed like he was there the first race I started, and he was kind of seeing me develop more and more. And then he eventually pointed out, and he said, "We think we should pick up this guy." So then they threw me on a trial, and yeah, I'm still here. So obviously went okay.
So that was at 11 he scouted you.
I think I was 13 when I got scouted, 12 or 13.
That's so
So,
crazy.
yeah.
Okay. And that seems like are you like the youngest person? You're the youngest story I've heard like this before. Or
The
is it?
ol the only one that was close, like, the only one that I've heard is, you know who Sebastian Job is?
Yeah, yeah, I
So
do. Just watched him this morning.
he was also scouted by, Apex at 13.
Okay, wow. And he's
So,
racing for G2
he's
now.
racing with a GT Red Bull. Yeah.
And so you've been with Apex Racing Team for the better part of 3 years. 3
My
3 or 4 years.
Yeah, so I'm just hit 2 years. My join date was March 5th of 2021, right? No, because I just hit 2 years, so of 2021.
Just let me just recap for everybody. I mean, here's this young driver. He has oval experience, transitions into road. Basically, after you go into sim racing 11, you're or well, like majorly, you're staying with sim racing. You're not doing real racing at that point, right?
Yeah, so, like, the last championship that I fully done is I did the Bandoleros for the Winter Series.
Hmm.
I did that, 2 full times. I won both times, and that was kind of the last full championship I've done at the time.
At the time, okay. So, and then flash forward to you do there's a Skip Barber competition which I participated in this last year just out of curiosity. I was like, how hard could this be? I mean, they're freaking these are the Formula 4 cars, right? So, like there's just so many faster cars in iRacing, right? And so easy to get used to driving faster cars in iRacing. But the Formula 4 car is a pretty slow car by comparison. Obviously, in real life, it probably feels totally different. How did you decide to do this competition? Was it through the team who encouraged you, or you just did it yourself?
Yeah, so kinda how the story goes is I
Mhm.
just was sitting in my rig one day, and I got a message from our team owner, and, right away I knew it was out of the blue because I don't usually he's a busy guy, he owns a couple companies, and for him to just message me randomly is, very rare. So, he messaged me and I opened it up and it said, he said, "This has your name all over it," and it was a link for, Skip Barber, $500,000 in prize pool, championship, win a fully funded season in their championship. And I just said, "If you think I should do it, I'll do it." Like, fine. Uh, then I got a from kind of after that, I got a couple more emails from people that I knew, and they were like, "Dude, this is for you. You should do this." Because a lot of people kind of knew my story. Like, I was a real life driver, and then I was pushed into the sim. I started getting really, really good on the sim to try and get back in the car. And so, yeah, a lot of people who knew me, they were like, "You should do it." So I ended up dragging one of my newer teammates at the time. I ended up dragging Michael Jenny into the championship. I was just like, "We should do this. Like, this seems like fun." The advantage that we had was that the F4 car was pretty new. So not a lot of people, nobody really had like an upper hand. Like from the day the car was released, everybody was on the same playing field. Nobody could get like a big advantage. It was basically just who could drive the best. Um, so yeah, I just remember with the championship, um, just it was a really interesting championship with the car, and it was being new, and how it is racing F4 with the draft, and it turned into some really exciting races. But you could definitely tell that there was two guys who was a class of the field who were consistently like up there and consistently winning races or doing really well, which was me and a guy called Mikkel Gada from Denmark. Um, and yeah, we had a really good championship battle. He ended up winning the championship. So he got the full season and I got the half. Um, and then that transitioned. 2 weeks later, we had to go to a school in Lime Rock Park and prepare to do a school on the weekday and then race on the weekend. And then that was the first time I'd been in a car in a couple of years. And
Yeah,
yeah,
what was the experience of racing the F4? I'm assuming you probably put in like hundreds of hours in the F4 and iRacing, right? At this point.
um, yeah. So throughout the championship, I probably did like a good probably 50 hours or so. You could definitely tell for me, like the championship, I started really, really high, and then I just slowly descended as the championship went on. But I definitely put in probably a good solid 40, 50 hours for the whole championship and in the car.
So what was
Um,
the what like going from sim, like doing that many hours in this car in iRacing? What was it like to not many people would probably get this opportunity, right? Like what was it like driving the real car at this point? Real cockpit, everything, like real power, real suspension or lack thereof, right? And then like what was that comparison like and and how much like in how many hours how many hours of preparation do you get? That's always something I think about too. Like, as somebody who's yeah, I mean, let's be honest. If I ever find my way into real racing, it's like champ car, which is like chump car. You know what I mean? It's like something for fun, and then maybe you win it and maybe you get an opportunity. I don't know, by luck. But I'm saying in your case, like you're getting to do a direct comparison and just and the emotions, the adrenaline, and transitioning, the wheel weight, the force feedback, all that stuff.
yeah, for me it was for me it was pretty natural because I'd done it before. I'd been in a car before. I knew what it was going to be like, and
Mhm.
I had driven an F4 before that point. Like I knew
Oh, you have?
kind of what
Oh,
it was.
wow.
Yeah, I had driven an F4 before that, so I knew what it was going to be like. Um, yeah, for me it was just getting the feeling back and just understanding what's going on. But the sim is very, very accurate, so it was very easy to drop in. But for that, I didn't actually before that race. Like usually, as the championship went on and as more and more rounds, I would do a little bit more and a little bit more hours at each track before we would went. So like it started at it actually started at none. I didn't do any before Lime Rock because I just didn't know, is it going to be the same? Is it going to be a lot different? I'm just not gonna do anything and show up. And we have 2 days into school, so we have a little bit of time to learn. I was just like, "Alright, I'll do what I need to do." And then as the championship went on, I started doing, like, some racecraft practice, then a little bit more, I started doing a couple stints, and then towards the end, it was prepping like it was a actual sim race. So doing actually proper stints, doing actually proper quali runs, proper racecraft stuff, just the whole thing.
Wow.
So as it went
And
on, definitely did
mhm.
more and more.
In terms of, like, the time you get, I'm assuming in real life you get a lot less
Yeah.
time, right?
So we would get 2 like 25-minute sessions of practice and then straight into quali. Yeah. So it's a lot less. So you have to definitely be able to adapt right on the fly. But usually the 20 minutes practice we had to cut down. So you do like a 15 minutes of the first session and then like 5 of the second because you had to save the tires because we only got one set of tires the whole weekend. The last weekend was the only weekend that I had ever done the full time of both practice because I pretty much was feeling very confident with where I was sitting, and I was just like, I wanna learn, and I want to do more laps.
Let's talk about the setup, the engineering part of it. I'm assuming you had like a crew chief, some crew.
So it was a spec series, so we all share the same engineer and the same mechanics, and it was about yeah, it was as similar as close as
All
probably.
teams are sharing the
Yeah.
same
So
crew.
it's under one team. So Skip Barber owns all the cars, the whole series, and basically everybody shares one main engineer and a couple mechanics, and they run the whole show basically. So it's like if you've seen like the W series, it's like that basically.
WC. No, I haven't seen that series.
So W series, there's also French F4. It's like a series that's
I've
like
seen.
completely spec. So one person or one company owns all the cars, and they set them up all the same, and yeah, it's to the best of their abilities.
I
So
see. I see. Because it's all about just like farming talent.
basically, and they want to make it as fair as possible in their words. They don't want somebody pulling up with $1 million budget compared to someone on $150,000 budget, and the guy with $1 million budget can like change his engine every
Right.
race, and
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I dealt with in regionals at karting, which is, yeah, you like top binning engines, all that stuff. It may be a spec series, blah, 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 but it's like, but yeah, you can still like, how does that work with the engines that they're supplying the cars and to make it super even?
so what they would do to make it as in their words as even as possible is depending on your size, they had small chassis, medium chassis, and large chassis, and they would have some chips on a table at the start of the weekend, and you would just pull a chip, and then that was the car you had for that weekend, and you would do it again every weekend.
Oh, wow.
So
So
they
totally
basically
random which
it was
chassis you
just
got.
totally random what chassis you
Wow.
got, what engine you got. So like I remember at
Huh.
Watkins Glen, I got extremely lucky at Watkins Glen, and I got a really good motor and a really good chassis. So I was really fast and I had really good speed, but then that also propelled me to where it was like I feel like I'm driving really good and the engine's there, so it's good. So I ended up winning the race by like 37 seconds because I really was feeling it.
Wow.
So in race 1 I went from last on the grid because of a quali mess up. And then I went from last to first, and then the second race I won by 37 seconds from pole. Comparing it
Wow.
to a race at Road America, where again I felt like I was driving really solid,
Mhm.
and I was just getting destroyed, and I was like I couldn't figure out what was going on, and it was down to motor.
It was down to motor?
It was down to the motor and how the chassis was set up. Because a lot of the chassis, even though they're set up exactly identical, I've noticed that some of the chassis would drive a lot differently. Like one of the chassis, the one I got the majority of the time, it was more rotatey, so getting in tight corners at tight tracks, it was really good. So like for example, VIR, I had it, and like in Oak Tree, so like the far corner before the back straight, it was really good there because it had lots of rotation, and it didn't want to understeer, it wanted to rotate, almost over rotate at times. And then versus a car that I had at Road America, which is again Road America, super high speed, super like wanted to really grain the front tires, and I had a car that understeered. So then it's punishing me even more. So then the tires go a little bit more, and
Mhm.
yeah, it's just a combination of I felt like I was driving good, but the car wasn't there.
And so, some more technical questions, which is like, versus like what you're able to change. Obviously, in a fixed series in iRacing, you can't change really anything except your brake bias.
You
And
could.
in real life, or what's that?
I was gonna say yeah, it's basically like iRacing. You can't even change your brake bias though. So
Oh, whoa.
you're straight up like it's all how you drive the car.
So all the alignment, everything, the toe, caster camber, everything is identical.
Everything from what they say that they do, they set it up exactly the same. The
What
only thing that's
what they
different,
say?
what they
What are
say.
you alleging here, Alice? Is there?
Uh, I mean, I'm saying they do the best that they can, but obviously things
Yeah,
happen, so
sure.
it can't all be like the engines is the main thing. That's like
Yeah,
nothing to their own. The cars are like few years old, so the wear and tear, and it
I
depends
see.
as well because they do the schools, so Skip Barber's mostly known for. So
Hmm.
sometimes they'll have the larger chassis, they'll be run more than like for example the smaller chassis. So the smaller chassis will have less mileage, so then they'll be better. But generally, the problems that we were having is the actual speed was the same. It was pretty close. It was like I think there was only one or two odd out of the bunch that had more top speed, but it was the difference of some had more torque. So some would come off corners and they would have more drive. Some would have better acceleration and higher RPMs, and then some in lower. So it just really depended on how it was, and that's where the varying was. Because some people's driving style, they like it in really high RPMs, and if they got a car that likes low RPMs, it doesn't work. And
Dude,
there was a
yeah,
whole
that's
nonsense
fascinating.
the whole season. It's a whole it was a experience for sure. It's definitely a different side of the ballpark that I've never experienced before, but in a good way.
And okay, so every weekend you're getting a new car. So every weekend, every track, you're getting basically a new, almost an entirely new experience. You can't carry over like a setup with your crew that you loved, or work from a place of comfort. I'd imagine. I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is as an iRacer, which is I crash the car a lot
Yeah.
in iRacing. Every time I do it, I'm like, well, what would that be like in real life? Were you close? Did you ever crash a car?
Uh, so let's see. So I only had one really big incident the whole year that was deemed my fault. So one of the things that Skip Barber has, if you get in a wheel to wheel incident, so like if you wreck with another driver, they'll assess the incident, and if you're not deemed at fault, then the driver who is deemed at fault has to pay their crash damage and your crash damage. So that's a lot different than like if you're in a private team and it's like, oh well, your car's damaged, too bad, and here's the bill, even though if it
What?
wasn't completely out of your control. So it was a good thing in a sense. So like for example at Road America, I got completely rear-ended in a braking zone, and I was not handed the bill because it wasn't my fault. Somebody just ran into the rear end of me. So, but I had an incident at Watkins Glen in qualifying. I was getting greedy on the first lap, so a little bit of cold tires, but I felt like the grip was there. And I came into the last corner, and I carried a little bit too much entry speed, a little bit too much mid corner speed. So then the rear starts going around in the last corner. Now, the first thing that comes to my mind is the wall. With Watkins Glen, the walls are pretty tight. It's not like a street circuit, but in the last corner, it's pretty much a street circuit. It's the curb and then the wall. So the first thing in my mind, I'm just like, please, I don't want to smash the wall because I'm going in, I spin, and the rear's coming first. So then it's like gearbox, engine, like all the expensive parts is there. And I end up doing like a drift tap. So the only thing that was damaged was the rear tail lights, and I flat spotted a couple tires. That was it. But they red flagged the session. They had to get me out the car and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Then they restart it, and one of the less experienced drivers comes in, does pretty much the exact same thing that I do, but doesn't like save it properly. So he slams into the wall, and he had to buy a brand new car, so like $70,000. Yeah, so
How did he
it
do
was
that? How did
this
you just buy? How did he get? Do you know how he?
you fork out the checkbook. It was unfortunate for that guy as well because he was an ex-military guy. So one of the things that he's going through is like all the trauma of like just like sleeping, like waking up and hearing like bombs and like thinking that he's like at war still. And so the race car driving was his way of kind of like escaping it. And yeah, that was the last time we ever seen him after that.
Oh, so he didn't come back.
Never came back.
Oh,
We just probably traumatized him
oh,
more, to be honest. So yeah. That was the closest I ever came to actually on my own, like not getting crashed out, nothing like that. The closest I ever came to wrecking.
that's crazy. Yeah, yeah. Wow, that's crazy. I can't even imagine. Yeah, I didn't even think about that aspect. So you didn't. I mean, other than that rear ending and that drift,
Uh,
you never damaged the car.
I had one more, but again, it wasn't my fault, so I didn't have to pay for it. It was at VIR, and it was basically a really exciting battle. So we were three cars abreast into turn one, like completely on accident. So like I took a run on like the main straightaway, pulled about halfway alongside of somebody, and then they popped out and they made it three wide, putting themselves in the middle. So I come into the corner, and the only thing I'm thinking about is I'm just gonna brake as late as humanly possible, and I'm just gonna try and get the car pulled up and see what happens. So I outbrake everybody by like 20 meters, and then the guy in the middle backs out. So then we're just side by side, and the guy that's all the way on the inside brakes pretty late, and he's still there. And he just comes in the mid corner and just understeers off, and we make wheel to wheel contact. So then it just flies me into the barrier.
Were you hurt at all?
No, it was fine.
Okay,
Not that
so
not that
kinda
bad.
lower speed crash or something like that?
I mean, probably like 70 miles an hour. Wasn't that bad.
Oh
What's that?
god.
Wasn't that bad.
It wasn't that bad, okay, okay.
Nah, that wasn't that bad. The only thing
That's
that goes to your
yeah.
mind is the bill. That's it.
Yeah,
Other than
yeah.
that, you don't think about anything.
Crazy, dude. What was it like to touch tires like that?
I mean, I can barely like it's happened so fast that I just remember like can see like off the corner. I feel like we're about to be going straight, and then I just feel this like thing, and I get thrown up in the air a little bit. I'm like, ah, and the first thing that's going through my mind is I didn't leave him enough room because I feel like maybe I pinched him too hard. Then we looked at the replay. I left him enough room. Was fine. He just understeered a little bit.
I see. So the stewards on the track are determining who's at fault for the damage, and then
Who's at fault for the incident, and then whoever's at fault for the incident has to pay all the damage bills.
wow, that's intense. So that's I mean, certainly throughout the season, you're probably carrying a lot of anxiety. Like, let's talk about the psychological aspects of like what you had to overcome transitioning. Obviously, you did real racing. So, was the real racing experience that you had going into this season of F4 at Skip Barber was that weighing on you, or at that point you were kind of a seasoned professional and you knew what to do? Or in addition to that, is your family or you ever thinking about your emotional well-being, psychological well-being? I think about my brother who has his doctorate in psychology, and I grew up with him always talking to me about stuff like this, so I'm always aware of like sports psychology, and I've gotten into esports psychology as of late. And so, yeah. So, what's your process as a competitor wanting to be the best, like emotionally, psychologically, through this process?
Well, for me, like when it came down to thinking about like what was going on, I would show up every weekend and I just do my. I felt like people were doing their jobs behind the scenes and I was just doing mine. And whatever the outcome was, it was what it was. I'm not gonna go out there and try and stick it in the wall. But if it happens, it happens, and you have to deal with it. The only thing it weighed on me a little more heavy was is because when we did the crash at Watkins Glen, it was 2 weeks in a row. So then I was kind of like, wow, I mean, doing a nice job of keeping it out the wall, like, and it starts weighing on you a little bit, but then prove that I could do it, so there's no problems past that point, really. Then I started to get more confident with it and not worry about it as much,
Did
handle
you
it
see
a bit more professional.
did you see that in the other drivers? Like, were you
Oh, yeah.
observing stuff like that? Yeah. What
So
did you
the
see?
biggest one from very close mate, Mikhail Gata. He and we got along a lot better than I thought, considering we came from completely different ballparks. Because when you're sim racing, we were doing the Skip Barber Championship. He was the main rival, so we were the number one competitors. It was the goal showing up every week to beat the other one. So then turning it into a really good friendship was something I did not expect going into that championship, and we got along really, really well. Off the track, on the track, any point, and he was in a lot different situation than I was because he had the whole season. He was on a lower budget than I was. Um, Obviously, me like having to find the money to do the rest of the season, that was a bit rough, but I managed to do that and had the rest of the season basically covered. Um, and yeah,
And
with
how did you do that? How did you do that? Or I mean,
uh,
you don't have to go into super detail, but like, that's one of the things that you know, I kind of talk about it. I've talked about it a few times on stream, and so I have an experience of like how people are just very doubtful, of anything that you set your mind to when it comes to racing. You know what I mean? And so, like, especially money. So, you know, maybe just talking about how, like, for younger drivers in your situation who are really good, like, what was your process of raising the money? Was it just your mom or your family helping you find it, or because you're young at this point? So, who's helping
uh,
you find the money?
yeah, that one was a lot easier for me because I did the first round and I did really well. And a family friend, I can't get into
Sure, of
specifics
course,
because he
of
likes
course,
his life
yeah, of
very,
course,
very, very private.
yeah,
But
yeah.
he was a family friend. He is a Porsche collector, so he has like 40, 50 Porsches That's all I'm really gonna say because I don't want to
Okay.
get into too much
Okay.
detail. But
Okay.
he has a lot of he's a very big car collector for Porsche.
And your family knew
Eh,
this individual prior
yeah,
to?
he's very good
Okay.
friends with my grandfather.
Oh, wow. Oh, god.
And he reached out to my grandfather and he said after the first race, he said, you know, if Elvis wants to do the whole season, I'm willing to help him out. So yeah, then he paid the last 3 races that I had to do. So basically, from that point, like the hard part was done, the budget was sorted. So then I just had to focus on showing up and doing the races that I could, and it was almost like it was definitely an interesting way of racing. Like I was very thankful, very appreciative, but I had to do a lot more things a lot differently when I was driving like that than, for example, when I was just driving on my own scholarship. Because when I was driving on my own scholarship, I'd do things that like I wouldn't really think because I was just like, I'm just gonna do it because you know whatever it is, what it is. But then when I mean, it was what it was, you know. So I was just doing the things I had to do to go and win the championship because that was the ultimate goal. And you had to take the risks at the start. And once I got the support from him, I was more in a different position where I was controlling the championship and I just had to finish and I had to close it out. I had done all the hard stuff already. So it was definitely a lot different, but I felt like I managed it well.
Okay. And, yeah, I have, like, a series of questions here,
All right.
which is okay, so I'm imagining okay, so everybody in this Skip Barber thing isn't from sim racing, right?
No, no.
Okay. Are you the only one from sim racing
It was
at this point?
me. It was me and Mikkel. Those were the two
Out of how many?
full time. Out of I would say there was probably 10 to 15 a race. Not like all new,
Okay.
but it was like probably like a there was definitely for sure a solid 5 or 6 that was there 90% of the time, and then there was a few
I see.
people that were here and there.
Basically, like and it ranges from, like, people who are wanting to go pro versus just gentleman drivers, or is it
Just gentleman
everybody?
driver, yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
anybody can do it. Like we had guys who were 60 years old. I mean, people that just, you know, people like one of the guys there, he was 60, I think, or late 50s, early 60s, and he raced in the Skip Barber series when Joseph Newgarden was there, and Ryan Hunter-Reay. So he was there like a long time ago, like 20 years ago. So that was definitely cool to see, and you know, but there was people all over, like any age, any background, any skill level, and the top for sure, like the top 5 or so was good competition, and they had a aspiration of going further than this for sure.
Okay, and then and how did your okay, so the real question is, um, you know, obviously you're in a unique situation having so much experience prior to getting into this, but how did like I mean, like do you feel like your training not training, but more of like your um like what did you do to prepare for races differently from sim racing to what you were experiencing during the season? Did it change at all? Was it just the same, or did you
Um,
use the sim in addition to terrain? Were other guys in the league doing the training using the sim, or some people in the league just like oh sim racing is lame? You know what I mean?
I know for sure Mikkel was definitely like on the same boat that I was, that we were using it like a little bit at the start. He never really got more and more as I kind of went more and more and more as it kind of went. I know
Mhm.
that a couple of the guys, like one of the guys who was the championship driver for me, he would use it a lot as well, and he would use it like purely for the IRL training. Where for me, I was balancing two. Like I was trying to also do any pro esports events that I could, and I was trying to do Skip Barber. So that also took away a little bit from my time in like the mid season. But I think the main thing for me was to be honest, getting outside. With being like a esports and like a gamer, I never really got outside a lot. Like just never really happened. And then once that like once I kind of knew that it was gonna happen, I started. I think for like a month straight, I went out, went for a walk, listened to some music. You know, just getting outside and getting that like almost like
Mm.
just getting used to it, like outdoors again. Like it was something that I was never really, you know, I was disconnected for so long.
That's incredible, man. Okay. Let me think this through for a second. I wasn't expecting that. So yeah, I mean, I'd imagine that your parents are probably happy about you going outside more often,
I
right?
mean, my
At that point,
mom didn't really she didn't really mind. Like, I mean, obviously, I didn't realize the benefits that it really had. I mean, again, I'm homeschooled, trying to be pro at esports,
yeah.
so I don't really have a major reason, to like proactively, like myself, just say I'm gonna go outside, and I would do it like every once in a while, maybe like once or so every week. I mean, it wasn't like I would just sit inside all the time. When I could, I would try and go for a little walk, but that was the
Yeah.
first time I've really consistently, like every single day, like that's part of my routine. That's part of my thing that I would do.
Wow. Okay. And I'm trying to explore any other ideas about the real racing. I mean, obviously, you've spent a lot more time in sim racing, and
Yep.
now you're doing sim racing for one of the top teams in the world, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I am. I'm
Okay.
very, very blessed.
Yeah. So you moved from the States, and now you're in the UK.
Yep.
Living with a bunch of friends, essentially living near a bunch of friends. And
Yep.
how often is the social life with the other drivers on your team? Is it pretty cordial, or is it are people keeping things a little bit more private, or do how does that work out at that level?
It's a lot more vocal, and that's one of the things that like I really also gained from coming over here is like like I'll say like from being homeschooled and from sim racing, like all of everybody like my age, they have like their friends from school and they get to see them like every day, and that's kind of their thing. But for me, it was well, everyone I know is on my computer, and from anywhere from like across America to then it started being anywhere in Europe, anywhere in the kind of that kind of side of the pond, and yeah, so when I came over here, the first thing that I instantly realized is the more interaction that we can have face to face, and actually like the element that I've not had for a long time, with just like close friends. And I had a little bit with Skip Barber, but this was the first like every single day, like going to school kind of vibes to where you can go up and speak to someone and you know have a meal, watch F1 or something like that, just a more personal level. And that's for sure something that I've gained here is getting to know every single one of the guys on more of a personal level.
Okay. And are you just thinking about school and how you're doing homeschooling?
Yeah, at the minute I am.
Okay. And when did you start that?
So I started that when I was 8 years old.
Oh, wow.
My mom, yeah, the year that I was supposed to be gone for 4 weeks, and traveling, and then turning into 4 weeks, turning into January next year. That's when I kind of had to start homeschooling for travel.
Wow. Okay. So you had to, your friendships growing up were kind of transient at best at that point.
It was anybody at the track really, and then yeah, then it kind of started being anyone online.
Do you feel like you were kind of reclusive as a result of those kinds of
Mm,
more shallower relationships?
you have to describe what that word means.
Which word? Sorry.
Reclusive,
Oh,
reclusive.
reclusive.
Yeah.
Like, just generally like not eager to seek out relationships, maybe
Uh,
more eager to be alone or with
I'm
yourself.
not I'm not really like a person that's like I want to lock myself in my room and I want to be by myself. Like I would
Yeah.
rather be around people than I would rather be by myself. But
Yeah.
it was just kind of how like it was unfolding
I
and I
see.
kind of just adapted to it.
Okay. Okay. Do you have any thoughts about like what we've talked about so far that I've missed that you want to share that you feel like I've not asked about?
Probably the only thing is the like and the Skip Barber um pro probably if it's good going over Pro Q last year and
Sorry, what was that? What did you say?
so Skip Barber end of last year and then Pro Q for 2022.
Pro Q? What is that?
So PES Pro Q.
Oh,
So
okay. Okay.
yeah, for like the World Championships.
Okay. Sim Racing Porsche Cup.
Yeah.
I see. Okay, and where's that at right now? Where's your sim racing career been the last year, and where do you feel like it's going?
Yeah, so through the Skip Barber stuff, I tried to do as many competitions as I can, but it was definitely a bit rough. The only one, like a full championship that I fully committed to was um definitely BMW, not BMW, sorry, PESC Pro Q. Committed to Pro Q really the whole time. And it was definitely hard because I had to miss a couple races because of Skip Barber. And
Mm.
yeah, so it was definitely under the gun a lot. Like I would show up to races on 2 days prep, and then I would show up to races on week prep. Like it was like I remember. Let's see. So throughout my Pro Q, I missed the first race because of a clash. The second race, I did like a week prep or like 5 days prep. The third race, I did 2 days prep. I did 8 hours of driving in 2 days. Was some of the worst experience of my life, but did it. And
Why was it?
oh, it's just such short time crunches, and you have to do everything like so condensed. It was definitely
Mm.
challenging. The
Mhm.
fourth race, I had a week prep. I missed the fifth race, and then the sixth race, I had a week prep. So I ended up only doing 4 of the 6, and because of the point scoring system, and there was only one drop, I missed by like 100 points in like a 400 something, just like top score, and then did 0, depending on the splits, and I missed by like 100 points, I would say. And yeah, so it was unfortunate because I was so close to last year and I didn't really try. And then this year I was a lot quicker and I tried a lot more, and not making it was a bit like a oof. But yeah.
I see. Okay. Well, I think how long have we been going? It's 9:30. I have no idea how long we've been recording for. I just realized I should probably put a timer on screen next time. I'm just kind of curious about who inspires you. Like, I'm assuming, do you watch Real Motorsports very much?
I do, yeah.
Yeah. Who are the drivers or the, just the leagues or whatever that motivate you?
I wouldn't really, so I'd say like for me personally, like I wouldn't really say like specific like to my sport. Like for race car drivers, like obviously like top guys like Verstappen and
Mhm.
Leclerc and stuff, those guys definitely inspire me for sure. Like for actually like my sport and for like what I do, I'd probably say Senna for me is the most inspiring in that sense.
Mm.
Um, but I think for myself, like as a personal thing, like I don't just look like as my sport. Like for example, like I like just like looking at it as athletes that inspire you in general. So like basketball, like Steph Curry, like football, like Messi, MotoGP, like Marc Marquez, and like all these kind of like genres of sports, and like the top level athletes that like came from nothing and super successful. Like those are the kind of people that are like super like inspiring to me.
Um what about this like roster of people that you just mentioned? Like, is there a commonality that attracts you to that
Uh,
inspires you then?
they're all kind of like all for their own reasons. Like I know for like Steph Curry, for example, when I grew up watching him, he was such
Mhm.
a innovator to the game of basketball and how it was played. That's something to me was really inspiring. Like same for like Marc Marquez, for example. So like with Steph Curry with the 3-pointer and really developing that
Mm.
into making it now like the most popular thing in the
Right.
NBA.
Yeah.
And then Marc Marquez with the elbow down riding style, which is like never been seen before. And
Mm.
he was insanely quick. But it's also the people that, separate themselves from like just using it for example, like Valentino Rossi for MotoGP, if you follow a little bit. I'm not MotoGP expert by any means, but when Valentino Rossi was racing, it seemed like he was always just that enough better than people to where he could do stuff. Like he was always a little bit better. But the thing that separates like from Marc Marquez was this much better than anybody in his time. So that's something as well for sure. Like the amount of dominance that they're able to have. That's also something that I like to look at. But yeah, like just
Mm.
generally like top sports athletes and what they do to innovate their game and to change how it's done. That's also something that's really inspiring. But mainly just top level athletes in my time.
Mm. So basically, kind of people who are thinking outside the box,
Yeah,
innovation, and also I'd imagine too, a certain level of, I know a few of those guys, not all of them, but certainly a positivity toward their craft.
for sure. Yeah, and it's just people like that are innovative. They show really pure dominance, and they're just
Hmm.
you can tell it's like the difference of like watching like some random person do it and then they do it. It's like you can see the just pure what they have and the talent that they have.
And how do you, and just do it like, okay, so, um, as a gentleman driver myself, I I think about the psychology as I mentioned before, but like how do you manage now, especially against these inspirations? Like, so you have a desire, you have a goal, right? And you have these massive goals, and they have to probably make you frustrated, like
Hmm.
a lot, right? You get frustrated a lot. How do you deal with maintaining focus and that positivity, or like th- almost, how do I say this? Like there's almost, there can be a prison, that forms around your mind, if you don't manage a lot of these pressures. How are you doing that?
Um, well, for me, that's probably I would say one of the more weak sides of my craft is I'm very self critical. I'm always my biggest critic,
Mm.
and I'm very like a perfectionist type esque person. So if I don't drive and I don't hit 10 laps perfect, then I'm gonna be frustrated about it. So for sure, like that's something that I've had to work out over time. Like that was one of my biggest downfalls my first year at running for the Pro Series in 2021. Is I was so perfectionist based, and I would give up so quickly that I would not like basically push myself past it and see if I just do like 5 times of not perfect, then it's gonna get better and better and better slowly but surely. And that's
Mm.
something that I've really like in 2022, I started to unlock a little bit, not fully, but I started to kind of get it under the short time frames because you have such short time and you don't have time to um like, "Oh, I can't drive today. I'm not perfect. I'll just come back to it tomorrow." And then eventually the time runs out, and then you have no time and you're under prepped. But with that, it was like 2 days. So you had to just do as
Mm.
much as you could in the 2 days. So it helped me kind of ingrain that like not being perfect is what gets you better. Um, and I still struggle with it to this day. Like 20 minutes or like a couple hours before this, I was doing laps and I was struggling to do a run because I'm trying to be perfect and
Hmm.
takes a couple people screaming at me like, "Mate, just do laps, like just do a stint. Like it doesn't have
Yeah.
to be blazing fast the first time. Like do 3 or 4, and then it will get better and better."
And
But yeah, I feel like
who's telling you that? Your manager, your teammates, or
teammates. So like
teammates?
Luke McEwen, Peter Berryman, Kevin Owens Jr. Sometimes. Mainly it's Peter though. I would say Peter and Luke.
How often do you practice by yourself versus practice in a group, I guess, or
Uh,
like, I mean, I don't see a lot of people doing it, but I know that Porsche Coanda streams their practices for especially like run sport, and this is kind of where I saw it first, honestly, which is, they practice together and they run in I guess a pack.
yeah,
How often do you do that?
yeah.
What's your ratio
So
there?
so just kind of like depending on the event, like 90% of our time is spent offline solo stints. We'll be in Discord, we'll be talking to each other, but we'll just do it offline because it's a much more controlled environment for us.
Mm.
And we'll just be trying to go as quick over the 15 laps as we can, or the 30 laps that we can, and just trying to get that as low as possible. And then the team sessions, generally for us, we've done in the past, we've done like test races. So we'll actually like set the distance and we'll do a full distance simulation. Um, like for example, for BMW Sim Cup, we'll do 2 hours and we'll just simulate it like that. Um, and then for the PES guys, where it's a lot easier to do because for them it's like a 10-15 minute to then 25-30 minute race, like back to back. So it's an easy to do in like a hour and a half span. Where
Mhm.
for us, it's like 2 hours straight, like have fun. So it's not that
Yeah,
enjoyable.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, but then generally there are times where we'll have like the descent sessions, as we like to call it, where it's just we throw up a practice and we just try and racecraft and race each other for a bit. Those are for sure the most fun, but they're the rarest usually that we see them. It's more the solo
Mm.
stints than the test sessions where we'll either jump in and do a stint as in like a pack,
Mhm.
or we will do a test race, and then the third one's kind of just like the mess around racecraft type deal.
I see. So a lot, still a lot of time. I think that's the part that I hate the most about sim racing is all the time I spend by myself.
Yeah,
Do you feel like, I mean, because it's like based on what you're saying, it's like what, like 80% of the time, maybe
yeah.
more, you're kind of solo stinting.
At first, yeah. Like I
Yeah.
remember when I started with Apex, and that was the hardest thing to overcome the first year I did Pro Q was just doing offline by yourself. Like I remember when I was on my first team, I wouldn't practice unless somebody put up a session. Like I wouldn't
Yeah.
test drive. I
I'm the
wouldn't do
same.
anything.
Yeah.
I would only practice unless they put up a session. So then it's started developing to where I can drive offline a little bit more and a little bit more. And then it slowly develops a little bit more. And then now I'm getting to the point where it's like it's what's most comfortable and I know what I'm doing, and kind of after time it becomes easier.
Are you, at 15, are you thinking about like incorporating esports psychology into your game?
Um
Or do you have
Definitely.
is there a team psychologist or counselor or
We
anything?
we don't, and
Wow.
we've had like a little bit for like a little bit, but I never took part
Mhm.
really. I really more not really thought about it, to be honest. I've more thought about developing myself as much as I can,
Mhm.
and kind of the only thing I've had is I had a mindset coach for a couple months, few months, um, kind of just to get me out of that like the dry stage after contenders and pro Q, where I was showing up, basically turning one lap and not wanting to do any more, and not not putting in enough to get anything out. I was putting in not enough to expect. I'm trying to say this correctly. What
Mhm.
I was putting in was not enough for what I wanted to get out,
I see.
type
And
deal.
a
Yeah.
mindset coach, is I've never heard of that term. Is that a licensed person, or is it or who is that person? Or like a driver?
No,
An advanced driver? Or
it was a person who's worked with like high level athletes, and
okay.
basically would just go over like his philosophy on life and to try to explain to
Nice.
you like why things were like if you do this and you feel like this, like you feel frustrated or you feel angry, then that's because this is taking over and you need to do this. And it was working. I was feeling a lot better, got
Mhm.
out of that like dry stage, and yeah, it was really, really effective. Very, very good.
And how long ago was that, and how long did you do it for?
I did it for 3 months, and it was like an hour a week.
And how long ago?
So that would have been late 2021.
Okay, okay.
So like,
So it's been a while. It's been a
it's
little
been a
bit.
while. It's been a while. Yeah.
I see. Interesting. Are you thinking about incorporating that again in the future, or is it just based on how you're feeling and you're like, okay, I feel like I need this now?
At the minute, no. Like I'm feeling really, really good. Like I'm waking up every day knowing what my purpose is, and feel like I'm doing the best I've done in a while. So
do you
I'm
feel
really, yeah.
do you feel like knowing your purpose is that's it's an interesting way to describe it actually. And that gives you kind of a certain, you feel like that grounds you.
A little bit, yeah. But I mean, like, obviously, for what I'm trying
Mm.
to do in life, with what my goal is, I'm just kind of at like another stop and another detour to try to push through to get where I want to go. So I'm just trying to prepare as best I can and doing what I can in a positive way. So then when I get the opportunity that I'm waiting for, then it can happen.
Okay. And then without going into too many details, obviously, which is like you mentioned, pushing through to where you want to be, where do you see yourself in like 5 to 10 years?
As I've kind of said, most people it says I'd love to be in Formula One, and I would like to
That's your goal.
hoist the world championship. Yeah.
Dude, really?
Yeah.
Formula One?
Yeah, I'd
Have
like
you done
to.
a lot of Formula One sim racing as well?
I'm not. No, that's the one thing I've never really dove down is Formula One and stuff in sim.
Yeah.
I've really had to be GT because of where the competition is in the sim. So
Yes. Yes. Interesting, man. Well, we've been talking for a while now, and we had a little talk before we recorded, and Elvis, it's you being 15. I just have a great deal of respect for your mindset and your journey and what you're doing and your dedication to excellence. And it's an impressive story, man. And do you have any sort of I don't know if you've ever thought about this, but do you have any advice for younger kids? I guess it's so weird to say that because it's like, well, but yeah, like young people getting into racing, I guess, or like just your. It doesn't have to be the generic answer, like anything that you feel like maybe people need to hear that you don't hear, spoken about maybe often, or any thoughts about that?
I mean, the main thing I can say is just like what I kind of think about it is uh whatever like your destination is, it doesn't really matter. Like whatever your life destination, if you have a goal in life where you want like lots of money, or you want this job, or you want to be a athlete for some team or something like that, is it's not about the destination, it's about the journey, and every person's journey is different. Like you can't look at like some like for example like Ronaldo or Messi or like whoever, like professional athletes that are there now. It's like you can't look at them and say like I want their journey. I want to go through the ranks just like Lando Norris or Oscar Piastri and just win everything. Like you have your own path and your own destiny and how you're supposed to get there. And if you truly believe that you can get there, then you will get there, but it will just be in your own way. And then someday people will look back at you and say that they want to do it like how you did it. So
Okay, and then just curious. I don't know if you have an answer for this. That's a good answer, by the way. And it's just more of like I was thinking to myself, in my life, I have these moments where where you have where knowledge is combined with how to say this, like age or knowledge combined with experience creates kind of like a moment of enlightenment that changes you forever. What's kind of the in your journey to where you are now and hopefully where you're going? What's that? Do you have any moments? A big moment like that where you're like, wow, like everything changed.
probably like the only thing that I've seen like over time is on like a sim racing side, feeling like I was, you come from like not being known by anybody and you're just starting out, you're playing and you're developing, to now where I feel like a lot more people around the community know who I am and know like my name, know who I drive for, know what I do. That's definitely the only like thing like, you know, kind of like wow, I know that like when I was starting sim racing, my absolute like number one idol was Josh Rogers. And now that he knows who I am and asks questions like about how I'm doing and what I'm up to, and it's like for me it's like surreal because it's like holy crap, like you're speaking to like your idol. Like that's like the first taste of it. That's like I hope to get in a few years' time when I make it to Formula One, like standing in the paddock or something and meeting somebody that's like is super inspiring in your life and you've seen on TV and when you're growing up, and then actually getting to meet them would be something that I've experienced now a little bit with the sim, and I hope to experience more in the future.
Awesome, man. And then just if you want to shout out like what's coming up that you can talk about that you're excited about, and then things that we can support you in terms of any sort of races or broadcasts or anything like that.
I mean, at the minute, the one thing that I for sure have on my calendar that I'm very much looking forward to supporting is the rest of the VCO Grand Slams. So Watkins 6 Hour and Petit Le Mans. At the minute, this year I won the 24 Hours of Daytona and the 12 Hours of Sebring. So looking
In
to
which
complete
car were you in?
LMP2.
Oh, LMP2. Okay.
So this year, looking to finish it off and win the full VCO Grand Slam. That's the big thing on the bucket list this year that we're setting out to do.
And for all these drivers who want to be fast like me, um, is it like is there like a piece of advice that you see a lot of drivers, let's say intermediate, let's say people around 4K, not talking about myself.
Alright.
I'm asking for a friend.
So, the best advice that I can give is to go to Apex Racing Academy and sign up for a subscription and,
Oh.
yeah, attend the group coachings
Oh,
and
group coaching.
develop
Okay.
there.
Okay. And the group coach, you like the group coaching? Have you done it?
The group coaching is, it's how most of us are here, like, how we got here.
Whoa,
Yeah, so, like,
really?
2016, like, Jamie Fluke, Kevin Ellis Jr., they subscribed to the academy, and they started showing up to the group coaching sessions, and they
Really?
started to yeah, that's how they started developing. Michael Janney, he was the same thing. But the group coaching sessions is one of the things that we offer that I feel is not utilized enough for how much we offer. So that's something. And then you also can get access to the data packs like VRS. And a lot of people that I've heard in the past have given us pretty good rep for what we do as work wise for our setups, saying that they're very, very good. So I can't speak too much, but I'd say that it's the best shop on the market at the minute. So signing up
Wow.
is not a bad decision.
And just that's a good plug for Apex. Just a follow up question, which is in the group coaching, what can drivers expect? Like, what is the training process in a group coaching look like?
What I always say with the group coachings is as much as you want to ask, as much as you want to get out of the hour that the coach is there, you can. You just have to be proactive about it. So you can treat it like a one-on-one coaching session with just a couple people sitting in the room if you want,
Mm.
but you
Is
have
that
to
what you would
be.
recommend? Just kind of
Uh,
being driven like
it's up
that?
to you. I mean, you can sit there and you can just take part in the laps, or you can actually talk to the coach and try and get information off of them. It's kind of up to how you want to take it. Personally, I find it very helpful when you're proactive about it and you're talking to the coach and asking questions and getting information.
Okay. And one last question, which is like setup development. Are you? I'm imagining, like, especially in the sim, have you spent a lot of time developing your setup developing skills, like like Motec and all that stuff? Are you in that deep
So
with that stuff?
personally, I am personally not one of our major brains behind building setups. I'm more of a person that's gonna just make some random click and hope.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Later in
what
the
like me.
stage,
Okay, that
yeah.
makes me feel encouraged. Excellent.
Yeah, so there's people, like, for example, like, Luke, he's pretty solid when it comes to setup. Alejandro Sanchez, he's also very solid when it comes to the setup. Um, but for me, hands down, like, the person who you want on docks, as an individual person, give him a shout out, is Chris Lullum. He always feels like, whenever you hear about him working on something, he knows exactly what he's doing, and he can make everything work in, like, harmony. So he is definitely, for me, hands down, he's really, really good when it comes to that. But then there's kind of people around those kind of guys like Chris or Alejandro, or for other teams who have that, like, one big guy, one or two big guys that do everything when it comes to the setup. You have a couple people around them who are gonna just make random ideas or random clicks and hope, and then that kind of helps find the RNG aspect of the setup.
Got it. Got it. Interesting. I was not expecting that answer. Very fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anybody else you just want to thank anybody in your life?
I mean, I guess the main thing is just family, friends, just, yeah, the team that I'm at now, Apex, for believing in me when I was really, really young. Yeah, cheers to moving on forward to the future, and look forward to more people I can thank in the future. And yeah,
Cool, man. Okay. Well, this is Elvis Rankin, 15 years old, dominated Skip Barber F4. He's looking to transition into a higher up league in the future. And I, for one, am super excited to see where you go, man. I appreciate your time with me. And hopefully, we could, honestly, I didn't even think about this, but we could check back in as the years go on, man, and really follow your progress. And I wish you the absolute best. I really do.